This podcast contains descriptions of violence against children and adult language and is not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Hi everyone, and welcome to Suffer the Little Children, the podcast giving voices back to victims of child abuse murder and their families. I'm your host, Lane, and this is episode 165, Joan D'Alessandro, Part 2. Last week, I told you about the abduction and murder of 7-year-old Joan D'Alessandro. On April 19, 1973, Joan was delivering Girl Scout cookies when her neighbor, Joseph McGowan, a high school science teacher, lured her into his basement, sexually assaulted her, and brutally beat and strangled the helpless little girl. McGowan pleaded guilty to felony murder and was sentenced to life in the New Jersey prison system with the possibility of parole after 14 years. In this episode, I'll dig deep into McGowan's various psychological evaluations and his interview with famed FBI profiler John Douglas, trying to reconcile the mild-mannered man McGowan appeared to be with the heinous rapist and murderer he became on Holy Thursday, 1973. Also in this episode, you'll hear my conversation with Joan's mother, Rosemarie D'Alessandro, who has spent decades advocating for children and victims' families in her beloved daughter's name. This is part 2 of the horrifying and incredibly inspiring story of Joan D'Alessandro. Now, we're going to get into Joseph McGowan's many psychological and medical evaluations, which are not only fascinating, but, I believe, necessary to understand how and why a seemingly normal man was not only able to assault and murder a 7-year-old girl, but then minimize that fact for almost 50 years afterward, dehumanizing Joan and her family while pretending to be an average, normal person when he was, in fact, anything but. Another quick trigger warning. Some of the information covered in this episode will, again, be disturbing. Joseph McGowan was evaluated on April 25, 1973, shortly after his arrest, by forensic psychiatrist Dr. Noel C. Galen. He told the doctor that he was mowing his lawn when Joan arrived to deliver his family's Girl Scout cookie order. This doesn't seem likely because he had just gotten home. Joan had rushed over as soon as she saw his car pulling into the driveway. Also, he had initially told police he went immediately to the grocery store when he got home. Lies and changing stories are common themes in his many interviews. McGowan told Dr. Galen that he was embarrassed because he didn't have the correct change to pay for the cookies. He told Joan to accompany him downstairs so he could get the money for her. Once downstairs, Joan apparently resisted, so he grabbed her and forced her into his bedroom, intending to rape her. He said he told Joan in a loud, forceful voice to take off her clothes, explaining that he used such a voice to command his students. He claimed he never completed the act because he became excited enough to ejaculate onto his fingers about 2 or 3 inches away from Joan. According to the autopsy, Joan had suffered a ruptured hymen, her underwear was stained with her blood, and traces of the perpetrator's semen were found inside her. Whether he completed the act or penetrated her digitally, which was his claim, the evidence told investigators he had sexually assaulted her. McGowan told the psychiatrist, "All of a sudden I realized what I had done. If I let her go, my whole life was gone. All I could think of was just to get rid of her. I grabbed her and started to strangle her, and I dragged her off the bed, tossed her into the corner of my room on the tile floor, off the rugs. She was trying to, scream, and was fighting back, but of course she really couldn't since I had my hands around her throat. She stopped struggling, just sort of lay there. I got dressed. I had been sweating so violently, I went out to the garage. I got some plastic bags to put her in. I saw that she was still moving, so I began strangling her again, and I hit her head on the floor repeatedly. She began to bleed from the nose, mouth, face, I don't know where. There was blood all over the floor. I then grabbed one of the plastic bags and put it over her head and twisted it tightly and held it there until she stopped. Then, McGowan told Dr. Galen, he put Joan's body in a plastic bag, wrapped her in an old couch cover, and tied her up with cord before putting her in the trunk of his car. He cleaned up her blood with old T-shirts before driving Joan's body about 19 miles to Harriman State Park in New York State. McGowan said he dumped Joan's body down an incline, then unwrapped her, put her under a rock ledge, and stuffed the wrapping materials in a garbage can beside the road. Then he returned home and joined the community in searching for Joan. Later, McGowan said, "I felt better when I went back to the house. I slept well." Dr. Galen completed his report on Joseph McGowan on June 6, 1973, in which he wrote that McGowan has given a well-documented history of sexual attraction to young girls. This, coupled with a clearly evident picture of a dominating and overprotective mother, would strongly hint at some profound problems in relation to his making a normal adjustment to an adult woman. The doctor speculated that younger girls would pose no threat to his rather shaky concept of his manhood. According to the report, McGowan admitted to the doctor that for about a year he had been sexually aroused by girls as young as 10 or 11, including his own 12-year-old cousin when he saw her in a short nightie. He also admitted to masturbating to violent rape fantasies. Psychologist Dr. Emanuel Fisher administered multiple psychological tests to McGowan in May of 1973, reporting that psychologically, McGowan was an extremely unbalanced, tense and hysterical personality whose tendency is to act out mood and impulse in a very explosive manner. Rational controls are weak, despite the fact that he is an exceedingly brilliant individual. Dr. Fisher said that McGowan repressed, avoided, sublimated, and intellectualized a tremendous amount of underlying unconscious hostility. The psychologist wrote that although McGowan made himself look like a very proper, conventional, conforming individual, his exaggerated propriety, conventionality, and conformity constitute his defensive facade, for himself and for others, against the underlying depression and hostility of which he is unconscious. Dr. Abraham Efron, a doctor specializing in both neurology and psychiatry, also assessed McGowan, producing a neuropsychiatric report on the defendant in October of 1973. McGowan told Dr. Efron about his fantasies of sexual relations with little girls, confessing that when he was 19 and working as a summer camp counselor, he became sexually aroused when a particular little girl sat on his lap. Dr. Efron also interviewed McGowan's mother, Genevieve, who told him that compared to her relationship with her son, his father was much closer to the boy and would take him out often. After losing his father, McGowan continued living with his mother until the day of his arrest. The doctor's conclusion stated, "He does not show what he necessarily feels. He conceals many facets of his complex true self and his true identification and related emotional difficulties. He tries to hide his inability to truly establish his masculinity. He experiences tension whenever he gets close to the opposite sex. This passivity generates anxiety, which in turn feeds on itself and results in a higher state of tension, which must correct itself in a complete loss of self-control or sexual release. He manages to control an underlying psychosis by intellectually holding in abeyance his primitive drives to an inordinate extent, but as in the past, and tragically in the recent past, he may act out again." During McGowan's July 1974 evaluation at the New Jersey Diagnostic Center, Dr. Eugene Revich, a renowned neuropsychiatrist, opined that Joan's murder was not a cold-blooded murder, but something committed in a state of extreme emotional disorganization and pressure. The killing was the consequence of an additional upset and failure due to premature ejaculation. There was a degree of dissociation with use of mechanism of denial. McGowan told Dr. Revich that his rape fantasies began in college and were brought about by sexual frustration and anxiety, telling the doctor that he felt raping a woman would give him a feeling of being better. Dr. Revich, unlike the other doctors who had assessed McGowan, wrote, "We believe these events only occur once in the lifetime of such individuals. A series of circumstances are necessary to provoke the incident. If the girl had not come to his home that day, or, perhaps, if he had $2 instead of only $1 and a $20 bill, the event would not have taken place, at least in the present." Between 1978 and 1990, several more psychological reports were completed. All of these seemed to be based on McGowan's self-reporting during short interviews with little or no in-depth study of the inmate. 3 reports, dated 1987, 1988, and 1991, recommended McGowan for parole, indicating that he admitted his guilt and seemed remorseful. However, he had never reached out to Joan's family to express remorse. He never mentioned Joan in his letters to Sue Poland, his pen pal, and whenever he referenced Joan's mother, Rosemarie, he referred to her as R.D., depersonalizing her and even mocking her. Dr. Kenneth McNeil, the principal clinical psychiatrist at the Adult Diagnostic and Treatment Center at Avenel, provided a more thorough evaluation on October 7, 1993. Dr. McNeil noted during this evaluation that McGowan denied any history of sexual fantasies or behaviors toward children prior to or subsequent to his crime, which was very different from what he had told all of the previous doctors who assessed him. This evaluation took place at the request of the parole board, asking Dr. McNeil to assess McGowan's 1. Likelihood of violent acting out, 2. General personality profile, 3. Presence/absence of severe psychological problems, and 4. Treatment program recommendations. Dr. McNeil reported that, while Mr. McGowan also denied any dissociative symptoms, his discussion of the present offense was notable for brief moments in which he would blank and look away while discussing the crime, which suggested a dissociative process. It was clearly difficult for him to concentrate on specific memories of his crime. This, too, was very different from McGowan's early evaluations, during which he seemed almost glad to describe Joan's assault and murder in explicit detail. Dr. McNeil wrote that although he found no evidence to indicate Mr. McGowan is at imminent risk of violent behavior, in a non-structured community setting, his ability to manage anger, rejection, and feelings of sexual inadequacy remains open to question. He concluded that Mr. McGowan has made little or no progress in fully appreciating the extent of sexual deviance and violence that is apparent in his crime. Unfortunately, it appears that he continues to primarily manage such negative aspects of himself through denial and repression, similar to the time of his crime. When Dr. McNeil evaluated McGowan again in 1998, he found the killer emotionally over-controlled and schizoid in his demeanor. McGowan continued to deny what he had previously admitted, his rape fantasies and sexual attraction to prepubescent girls. At this time, McGowan said the murder happened because the victim happened to come to his home during a moment of abject despair in which he had been actively planning to kill himself for weeks but had been unable to follow through with his suicide plans. When he saw Joan delivering Girl Scout cookies to his house, he said, he became overwhelmed with unexplainable feelings of rage. In his evaluation, Dr. McNeil concluded that McGowan presented as a schizoid, chronically depressed, socially avoidant individual with a history of impulse rage reactions. The doctor was concerned about McGowan's potential for dissociation at times of anger, and also the likelihood of severe sexual pathology involving pedophilia and sexual violence, which he continues to deny. Dr. McNeil wrote that McGowan had paranoid tendencies and significant violence potential, and that, given Mr. McGowan's continued inability to deal with the sexual aspects of his crime, it would appear that he has made very little progress in confronting the pedophilic impulses and sexual sadism that erupted in his crime. As such, he should be considered a poor risk for parole. You all know I've had some issues over the past few months that have affected my ability to focus, concentrate, and stay motivated and on track. I was finding it impossible to create new episodes of the podcast, as evidenced by the 3-month hiatus I had to take. I've found something that has actually helped a lot. On top of getting the mental health support I needed, I also started drinking these little green shots alongside my morning coffee, and I love them. They're called Magic Mind, and they've helped me so much by getting me into a motivated, productive state of mind. I've been using Magic Mind for about 2 full months now, and it's been a huge help to me. On the days I've forgotten to drink Magic Mind in the morning, I have no problem taking it in the afternoon, and still sleeping well at night, unlike drinking coffee in the afternoon, which keeps me up half the night. I'm finding I also have less stress and anxiety because Magic Mind helps me get things done, but also because it contains a compound called L-theanine, which naturally lowers your body's stress levels. Magic Mind also contains matcha, which has way less caffeine than coffee, and also contains compounds called catechins, which are responsible for extending the benefits of caffeine by slowing the body's ability to absorb it. On top of that, Magic Mind has a bunch of other ingredients, including nootropics and adaptogens, that improve your attention span, ability to process and learn new information, and memory, reduce stress, anxiety, and fatigue, improve physical and mental endurance and mental clarity, and help reduce inflammation and strengthen your immune system. Considering how much it's helped me, I definitely recommend Magic Mind to anyone who has trouble functioning at 100% some days. And the Magic Mind team created an awesome offer for me to share with you. You'll get 50% off your first subscription or 20% off your first one-time purchase. Just visit magicmind.com/STLC and use the discount code STLC20. That's magicmind.com/STLC and use discount code STLC20. My 50% off code only lasts 10 days though, so make your order soon. That's magicmind.com/STLC and use discount code STLC20. If you try it, let me know how Magic Mind works for you. New Jersey Parole Board Chairman Andrew Consovoy had created a special investigations unit to investigate questionable parole cases so that members of the board had all of the information available before making a parole decision. In 1998, Mr. Consovoy was the official who called in John Douglas after reading his book, Mindhunter. Mr. Douglas is one of the preeminent FBI criminal profilers, and he has inspired characters in multiple TV shows like Criminal Minds and movies such as Silence of the Lambs. The book Mindhunter was also adapted into a popular Netflix series. Mr. Douglas's interview came about after a court decision in May of 1998 that changed New Jersey's parole board rules. Instead of considering whether or not an inmate was rehabilitated, the parole board must only decide if there was substantial reason to believe he would commit further violent crimes upon his release. His level of rehabilitation should not be considered, only whether or not he could be considered dangerous. Enter John Douglas. Before Mr. Douglas interviewed McGowan at Trenton State Prison, he spent several hours with the case files covering Joan's murder, familiarizing himself with her killer and his crime before meeting him in person 25 years after it took place. In one of his later letters to Sue Poland, McGowan had complimentary things to say about Mr. Douglas. He wrote of the interview, "It turned into a 5-hour interview that covered my life, events of the crime, and experiences since. The man is good. The few times I could pull back and just observe him, I realized that he never once referred to any notes. Yet he had the details of my file well memorized. He was also good at putting me at ease so he could steer the discussion where he wanted to go. It was much easier to detail the truth to him. He listened, than to do the same with the parole board. They don't really listen, but ask predetermined questions. I hope that I read him correctly as being honest and straightforward. I say that because he told me at the end of the session that he believed mine to be a situational crime and not of a serial type. As I left, he shook my hand and wished me good luck. In any case, it was a good experience and should help me when I next see the board." Mr. Douglas remained non-judgmental, fact-oriented, and objective during the interview. He managed to get McGowan to talk about Joan's murder, during which McGowan described picking Joan up by her ankles, swinging her around, and slamming her head to the floor, fracturing her skull. Mr. Douglas wrote about it in The Killer Across the Table. "It was hot as hell outside, but the interview room was very cold. In fact, I was trying to keep myself from shivering as I sat there, even though I was wearing a wool suit. McGowan, on the other hand, had begun perspiring profusely, just as he had described feeling after the attack. He was looking away from me in a trance-like state, breathing heavily, and his prison shirt was drenched with sweat. I could see his chest muscles trembling. I thought immediately of the quotation I had just read from Dr. Galen's initial report after McGowan had beaten and strangled Joan. She stopped struggling, just sort of lay there. I got dressed. I had been sweating so violently. In his head and in his physical being, he was right back in the act." Mr. Douglas concluded that McGowan had killed Joan methodically, with purpose and intent. He said to McGowan, "You're not a psychotic, even though you tried to show dissociation from the crime. What I see is pretty logical, rational behavior. a statement McGowan didn't disagree with. Mr. Douglas also noted that McGowan felt no empathy for Joan, her family, and everyone who loved her. The impression I received was that he was telling me that since he couldn't bring this young girl back to life, he just had to move on, and everyone should understand that. The murder was simply a fact of life to him, as if he had cancer or a heart attack, and now the doctors were determining if he was well enough to leave the hospital and resume normal life. At one point during the interview, McGowan confessed to Mr. Douglas that when his grandmother and mother died, he inherited a good amount of money from their life insurance and from the sale of their house. He said he had hundreds of thousands of dollars in an out-of-state bank because he didn't want the victim's family to take the money from him. In fact, before his mother, Genevieve McGowan, died in 1992, she had set up a number of trusts, one of which benefited her niece. None of these trusts directly benefited her son because Genevieve had anticipated wrongful death claims against Joseph. Instead, she instructed her niece to give her son whatever he needed. Because the niece controlled the money, the D'Alessandros couldn't sue him for it. Mr. Douglas later said,
I believe had McGowan not been identified, he would have gone out and killed again. McGowan would have been, in my opinion, would have been a serial killer, and anytime the stressors in his life became intolerable, he would go out on a hunt looking for victims. What was amazing, the room was freezing, this jail cell that we were in. His chest is shaking from the cold, but he's perspiring profusely, and sweat is pouring off him, and his shirt is soaking wet. No doubt about it that he did it. And what's nauseating to me is that he has not a shred of remorse. I mean, he couldn't even fake it.
I'll pause here for a quick word from my sponsors. When he went before the parole board, John Douglas was not the ally McGowan seemed to think he would be. Mr. Douglas told the board that the crime occurred because of McGowan's growing disappointment with his life and the kind of man he was becoming. When he killed Joan, Mr. Douglas said, McGowan had never experienced that kind of power before and found it all-encompassing, hypnotic, transcendent. He gets her down to the basement bedroom. He makes her strip down. He prematurely ejaculates. He's excited, but not because he's going to fulfill his fantasy and have sex with a young girl. He's excited because of his power, because he wants to kill and he's going to. That's what causes the erection. And then his anger is intensified even more when he loses control, not of his victim, but of his own erectile dysfunction. When board chairman Andrew Consovoy asked Mr. Douglas if he would release McGowan given the choice, Mr. Douglas replied, "No, I don't know when he's going to commit his crime. I don't know whether it's going to be a year, 5 years, or 10 years. But when the situation presents itself, when life presents him with a stressor, loss of a job, rejection by a woman, rejection by a community that doesn't want him living among them, he can lash out again. I look at his personality as a ticking time bomb ready to go off if things don't go his way." For example, if someone cut in front of McGowan at the grocery store, Mr. Douglas suggested, he might go out to the parking lot and wait in his car. He has this anxiety, panic attack reaction. So to overcome this, what he does is psych himself up, get angry as hell. He goes back into the store and he confronts this person. And if she isn't nice, he explodes. Mr. Consovoy asked if Mr. Douglas saw any appreciable difference in McGowan between the time he was arrested and their interview, and Mr. Douglas responded, "I don't see it. He'll put on a good front for you, but he's like an iceberg. You're only seeing the 10% above the surface. And you may see changes in the way he responds because he's intelligent and the whole parole process has been an education to him. He knows all your tests. He knows what you're looking for. But all you've done is put his physical body on ice for the past 25 years. You have not changed what's in his head, the sexual response to the power of violence. If he reoffends, it's likely to be against a person or persons near at hand. Bottom line, I would not want this person living on my block or in my community." At his parole hearing in October of 1998, Joseph McGowan, by that time 52 years old, testified for 9 hours, telling the parole board that he only recently realized the impact of his crime on Joan's family when he watched a TV commercial featuring Rosemarie. He said when he saw the political campaign commercial, he almost threw up because it was so chilling. I hadn't seen these people since 1974, and I hadn't suspected how much it affected them. But seeing that commercial really drove it home, how much I had taken from them and how much pain I had caused them. He admitted, however, that he didn't discuss seeing the commercial in therapy because there's nothing I can do. I cannot change that. I cannot go back and bring that little girl back. The board confronted McGowan with evidence that, as a teacher in 1970, he had dated a 16-year-old student despite knowing it could ruin his career. He denied the allegation at first, then admitted he lied to every previous evaluator who asked if he ever dated minors because he didn't want to cause problems for the student. He only dated her, he said, because he wanted to be in a superior position to the girl. He also denied ever having sexual fantasies about young girls, even though he had admitted these fantasies to several doctors. He claimed he originally told doctors he had such fantasies because he had hoped he would be placed into a sexual offenders unit, which he believed would allow him to be released earlier. McGowan also said that the motive he originally gave for the crime, that he was embarrassed by not having the correct change for the Girl Scout cookies, was also a lie. He said he lied in his previous evaluations because, I will say almost anything when I'm scared. On the day of the murder, McGowan testified, he was thinking about killing himself because he thought of himself as a failure. My last little success in life was my teaching, and now I had just screwed that up. I'm not dating anyone. I have no relationships. I'm not going anywhere. I mean, here it is Easter, and most of my friends are taking off on an Easter trip, either down to Florida, Mexico, or going somewhere, and I'm sitting around doing nothing. Co-workers told police that during the weeks leading up to that Easter trip, McGowan had been acting strangely. As for his thoughts of suicide, McGowan said he was too cowardly to do it. Then he said, the doorbell rings, this poor little girl is standing there, and the thought flashes across my mind, well, you can't kill yourself. Can you kill that? The fact that he so clearly dehumanized Joan by referring to her as that cannot be ignored. McGowan also explained how he was able to convince Joan to go downstairs with him, saying that because he was a teacher, he was skilled at controlling children. Chairman Consovoy asked if McGowan was telling them he killed a little girl over a spring break trip he wasn't going on, and McGowan waffled for a while before getting to the point. What really spurred his rage was his mother. Mr. Consovoy later told John Douglas, he told me the whole story about planning on getting married. He met this girl. They fell in love, etc., etc. Then he brought her in and introduced her to his mother and grandmother. And then his mother said, you're not getting married. He said, yes, I am. And she said, well, you can get married, but if you do, you can pack up and leave now. Take your bride with you. Don't ever see me, don't ever talk to me. You're out of the will. You have no money coming to you. Good luck. It's either her or me. He didn't say why his mother reacted that way. He just said that's how it was. And Joe said goodbye to the girl and stayed with Mama. Aside from the resentment McGowan must have felt toward his mother, but was unable to express to her, he may also have felt that this was his last, best shot at real happiness. Co-worker Jack Machino once said about McGowan's fiancée, I met his girlfriend on one occasion. My God, she was the sweetest, most beautiful thing. She was very tiny compared to him. During the 1998 parole hearing, McGowan eventually discussed blaming his mother, who died on April 16, 1992, for his overwhelming feeling of sexual inadequacy, saying he considered his rage toward his mother to be the primary motivator behind the commission of Joan's murder. The sexual assault, he said, was simply opportunistic, because Joan was small enough for him to control physically. Mr. Consovoy related to John Douglas, the rape was just another manifestation of anger. When he opened the door, Joan was a dead person. He was just so angry, I think that his whole world fell in on him, all the things that had happened all of his life. I mean, how many people at his age don't get married because of his mother? He wasn't a kid. Something set him off. I think that trip did have something to do with it. He was all by himself. He was acting strangely. The trip represented the fact that he was a failure and maybe a coward because he couldn't stand up to his own freaking mother for God's sake. When asked why his mind was overtaken at that moment by thoughts of killing Joan, McGowan told the parole board, just because I wanted to destroy. I wanted to kill. Although this man would spend the next 48 years following Joan's murder pretending to be perfectly normal, he absolutely would repress and avoid the subject of his crimes, and it's painfully clear that if he was ever a free man again, he would also be a very, very dangerous one. It's also clear that there were plenty of reasons he spent those 48 years behind bars where he belonged, and that he was never granted parole. In 2014, Rosemarie D'Alessandro met with the CEO of the Girl Scouts of Northern New Jersey and the Chief Girl Experience Officer from the organization's national office, requesting that they prohibit girls from selling or delivering cookies door to door. 10 years later, I don't believe that such a ban has been specifically implemented. I reached out to the Girl Scouts of America for their current policy on in-person cookie sales and deliveries, and they responded by sending me a copy of the organization's Cookie Family Connection Guide, which includes safety tips for the Girl Scout cookie program. These include: Buddy up. Always use the buddy system. It's not just safe, it's more fun. Protect privacy. Girl Scouts' last names, home addresses, and email addresses should never be given to customers. Partner with adults. Adults must accompany Girl Scout daisies, brownies, and juniors. Girl Scouts in grades 6 to 12 must be supervised by an adult and must never sell or deliver cookies alone. Sell in the daytime. Sell during daylight hours unless accompanied by an adult. Do not enter any homes or vehicles. Never enter someone's home or vehicle. Only approach vehicles at designated drive-through cookie booths. This just doesn't seem like enough to me. As I've mentioned throughout these episodes, Joseph McGowan wrote letters back and forth for 33 years with a woman named Sue Ann Poland, who died in 2005. Rosemarie received those letters after Sue's death from Sue's son, Joe Poland. Interestingly, it later turned out that Joe Poland was also a sexual predator. In 2018, Poland posted a rant on Facebook in which he confessed to planning to kill himself, stating he had financial and health problems. He also threatened to shoot a specific man or to kidnap 2 young girls for perverted reasons. When police attempted to check on Poland at his home at 305 East Elm Street in Hazleton, Pennsylvania, he opened fire on an officer who returned fire. This ambush led to a 4-hour standoff involving dozens of police officers from multiple agencies who evacuated neighbors from their homes and detoured traffic. Ultimately, police entered the home to find Poland dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. After Poland's death, investigators discovered that he was using both social media and the U.S. mail to communicate with young girls aged 9 to 16 from at least 22 states and other countries, including China, England, and Canada. According to police, Poland downloaded a large number of photos of girls from social media and mailed them to the girls' home addresses, along with sexually graphic letters describing what he wanted to do with the girls. He used various names and sent a number of these packages using certified mail. Police in various locations cautioned parents to check their mail and turn in any suspicious packages that might be related. Although this isn't directly related to Joan's case, I found it fascinating that this man's mother communicated for decades with another child sexual predator, Joseph McGowan. Back to Joan's story, in 2021, the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office dedicated a room in the Paramus Child Advocacy Center to Rosemarie in Joan D'Alessandro's memory. The dedication plaque outside the Rosemarie room reads, "May those who enter this room find hope, comfort, and resilience." At the dedication ceremony, Rosemarie told the crowd of law enforcement officers present, "I am honored and grateful for this. I never expected it in a million years. Remember Joan today, so tomorrow's children will be safe." On that day, the prosecutor's office presented Rosemarie with a lock of Joan's hair and the red, white, and blue sneakers that Joan had been wearing when she last left home. Rosemarie had no idea this evidence still existed, and she treasures them. Rosemarie has won 7 awards to date for her work advocating for children and crime victims, including the Special Courage Award from the U.S. Justice Department's Office of Victim Services, the Russ Berry Making a Difference Award, and the 2019 Women of Achievement Award. The Jones Joy Foundation continues to operate to this day with Rosemarie as its president, Joan's youngest brother and namesake, John, as vice president, and his older brother, Michael, as treasurer. In September of 2023, the foundation hosted the annual Joan's Joy Child Safety Fest, where, as in the past, white cabbage butterflies were released in Joan's memory, symbolizing Joan's joyful, innocent, and free spirit. 2023 marked 50 years since Joan's passing. In December, a 36-minute documentary by filmmaker Vanessa Martino titled Daughter of Mine premiered at the Hamptons International Film Festival in Sag Harbor, New York. The documentary, which centers around Joan's case and Rosemarie's efforts to keep Joan's memory alive through victim advocacy, should be widely released in 2024. There is a short teaser clip available at daughterofminefilm.com. Rosemarie recently released her book, The Message of Light Amid Letters of Darkness. After McGowan's pen pal, Sue, died from cancer in 2005, Rosemarie was given over 300 letters that McGowan had sent Sue from prison. Only after he died could Rosemarie publish those letters, which she did in McGowan's own handwriting. At the same time, she included the parallel story of her own life throughout the same time period, especially her quest to spread Joan's message of hope, love, and justice. Rosemarie held a book release party at her home on September 7, 2023, which would have been Joan's 58th birthday. In the book, Rosemarie wrote about McGowan's letters. It was a difficult decision to talk about them publicly because I didn't like thinking about Joan's killer, but I realized it was necessary because people would be given a unique chance to learn about the inner workings of evil by reading them. Maybe those working in different law enforcement fields could get a more in-depth understanding of the mind of a killer by reading the 332 letters he wrote over a 33-year period. There were so many insights I got from reading them. I saw the subtlety of evil and how Joan's killer was able to engage in small talk as though this was just a setback in his life and it would blow over. I noticed that he never mentioned Joan's name in any of the letters and gave no worth to her life. He never showed a speck of remorse. Inspired by my love for my child Joan, I became her voice, and the message of hope, love, and justice would radiate. In my journey, I was to find out that the killer could not extinguish Joan's light because the spirit of her legacy would become so strong that it would fill every space in the world. I'll include a link to Rosemarie's book in the show notes for this episode. Rosemarie is offering a deep discount on printed copies of the book through joansjoy.org, which she will autograph free of charge for anyone interested. After this quick sponsor break, you'll hear my recent conversation with Joan's mother and a truly inspiring advocate for change, Rosemarie D'Alessandro. Today I'm talking with Rosemarie D'Alessandro, Joan's mom. Thank you so much for joining me, Rosemarie.
Thank you for letting me be here and have this opportunity. It's the first time that I'm being interviewed for a podcast in my life.
Well, it's my honor. Thank you so much. Well, let's start talking about your book. We'll do that right off the top.
Okay.
I know the impetus for the book was when you received all of those letters from Joe Poland, because Sue was McGowan's pen pal for all those years. Do you know why Sue wrote to McGowan in the first place, or how that even started?
Well, what I understand is that it was a priest at the church that brought things up about, it'd be nice to write to him. He's in prison. It's a very big case. And, everybody's forgetting about him. Somebody told me something was being said like that by a priest. So what I surmise is that she heard it at this church, a Catholic church in Bergenfield. That's how it started.
So she just sort of reached out to him and kept writing to him for 33 years.
And in the letters, you find out, even though it's not directly there, that she was an inmate at one time. She doesn't say it very black and white, but she gives you an indication when she's writing to him. And he's saying, I thought that you were, incarcerated at some time.
That's pretty interesting. I wonder, no way to find out now, but that would be interesting to find out why she felt this kinship with him.
Yeah, wouldn't it be interesting? Yeah, that would. Because she has one son that we find out is a pedophile. And then in the letters the other son is doing what, like stealing and.
Didn't sound like the most stable household.
Yeah. And it seems like even though she said from the papers she found out something about what happened to Joan, because he never spoke about Joan in letters.
Not at all.
And she said that's soul searching. So even though with that, and this was at the very beginning, this was 73, she continued to write to him for 33 years because I think she liked the companionship. She liked talking to someone that was listening to her.
Right. And she kind of felt this weird kinship with him, and he knew exactly what to say to kind of keep her drawn in.
Sometimes you would think, like at the time when he was writing to her, that he was sincere.
Exactly. It did seem like he wanted her friendship, but I think he just liked having someone fawning over him.
So therefore, he has emotions with her. And then, as far as with Joan, there's no emotions.
No, or with you or any of your family.
And I don't even exist to him, and Joan doesn't exist.
Right, unless he's annoyed by you at that exact moment.
Oh, but he got annoyed. When we were, like with the suit, when I did that was going to help all people, including myself, if he had money. But all his money was spent on appeals. And then the other money he had, there was money given to relatives in Wisconsin.
So that no one could touch it.
No one could touch it, and that would be there for him when he got out.
Yeah, and he looked at that like it was inevitable. He was getting parole and he was going to move on with his life, and that was it.
He could pretend so well that the other really, was just a one-time thing. Really, I'll be fine after that. And as you read the letters, what he really didn't like is that then I said, well, I know he's getting money from good behavior and also getting money for working there. So even if you get $1.50 a day, $1.50 a day, you got like almost $10 a week. And then you could buy your candy. You could buy your, little things that you like. And I says, well, let's see if we could do something where there's accountability, that he's pushed into it. And then we could get little monies, and that could be used towards our foundation goals, which would be to give a child maybe an ice cream cone.
Better they should have it than him.
Give a child a chance, right, to get lunch at a restaurant. So anyway, we started, and that was John and myself. I started with the ideas and the development part and the structure of it. And then John would take it, getting in contact with the people and doing the internet work. And we got a situation there where they never had this in the prison, where now you can get part of their little money, the money they get. And he didn't like that at all.
No, I bet he didn't.
I thought that by doing that, it could be positive. I could get something from it for the foundation, and it could be positive that he is seeing the accountability and feeling it.
Yeah, and then it also helps other victims' families going forward.
I hope they know about it. But you got to do a lot yourself as a victim, because a lot is done for these people in prison. They get advantages, and they're really speaking up for their rights and this and that. Then I say, my gosh, he's getting visitors from the priests. He got visitors from this lady. Well, the months were going by, and I'm sure it happened to other victims too, but I know it happened to me. I don't get visitors from the priest, and I have 2 children to raise too, 8 and 9. And I was thinking about, wouldn't it be nice if somebody came and just took them out to a movie, or just gave them a little attention? It wasn't always like from a parents.
Yeah, so that they knew someone was there for them too.
I used to feel bad about that, yeah. And then I used to try to do whatever, as much as I could, to make up for it. But, you're only one person. And then I'm struggling with the sickness. But that's why I stayed in the house, because I knew I wouldn't have the strength to move the stress would just close up all my organs. And then the children would feel more stable staying in a community that they knew. Because remember, they're 8 and 9, they're not 12 and 13, where they could process. They needed that security. And they needed a parent that was going to consider them. And, I wasn't one of these parents, like they'd come home from school and I'd be crying. I wouldn't show it to them because they're 8 and 9. They couldn't process it as an older child. So everything used to be almost like I wasn't going through that much. Yeah, maybe I did it even too much, that I was being too considerate and not showing what I was going through. But I really showed what I was going through because I wanted them to feel stable. Like I wanted them to be children and not have more than what they were going through. My estranged husband, it was a few days before the vigil, before the movement started, and that's when I spoke to about 1,200 people and did public speaking for the first time. And that's really when the movement started. Even though I didn't know a movement was starting, I wasn't planning to start a movement. It just developed. It was all grassroots. And then what happened was I had to do so much. And I was working like 24 hours a day, almost. And it was very stressful. And stress is not good for what I have. I was lying in bed to get some strength. But meanwhile, I asked Frank to take care of something, like I think something with a CD. It would be a little bit like a pain in the neck. And then he was getting frustrated that, it wasn't working. Like every other word was a curse word in front of the children. He just got such a rage with me because he was so frustrated with this. And then, of course, things are hectic around getting ready for this vigil. It's a stressful environment. And then he screamed at me like I was like a nothing. And then I really stood up to him with such strength like I never did before.
Good.
Yes. That was a triumph. And that's when he put his hands around my neck. And he said, I'm going to choke you. And there were red marks. And I tell you the truth, if I wasn't able to stare him down, I felt he was going to really squeeze. That was that potential. But yet, there was something that just gave me the courage. That's what I had to do. And I looked in his eyes, and I said, you're not better than me. You're not more superior than me. I'm a person. You don't have power over me. And he took his hands away. And then guess what? When we went to the vigil, he's saying how amazing I am in front of the people.
He changed his tune pretty quickly.
One good thing was, remember, I'm dealing with the most evil of evil with Joan's killer. And how am I going to do this mission and this work? And it looked like I was, going to be a person that was guiding a lot of people. If I was going to be troubled with animosity and hate and bitterness and revenge, my life would have been all controlled by that. And how could I be able to do this work and be free? Luckily, the Holy Thursday, Easter, and who Joan was, I believed in it so much that I knew in order to have this message of hope, which would be, I saw a message of hope with this. I chose not to have all that. I chose it. And then, there were several ways I got strength. And one of the ways was that I didn't want any of these people to control me anymore. I wanted to think of Joan. I didn't want to be thinking of poor me. I was thinking of Joan first. And thank God I did that. I'm so happy for that. I'm so happy because when I found out all the things that happened to her and how she suffered, and, you did a good job with the narrative and just saying what the reality was, and you did it with respect. And I think that had to be said, and you said it. Because I think that how we change things is by dealing with things. And you don't really deal with things when you have a bitterness and you have the revenge. You think you're dealing with things, but really it's always trying to get back. I think how I chose to do it was I'll fight for justice, and that's what I'm fighting for, and prevention. And then also another way is spiritual. Get help spiritually. Get help by helping others.
I love how you said, God is your psychiatrist.
Yeah, I never went to a psychiatrist. But at that time, they didn't have social services. Maybe if they had social services, I would have said, yeah, maybe I'll go, and just try it out. But my thoughts come from the Christian doctrine, okay? But there's a lot of ways that people could have strength in spiritual ways. That's so important because, we're human beings and human beings have so many parts to them. It's not just physical. It's not just emotional. It's not just mental. There are other parts too.
Yeah, we're complex.
Yeah, but we're made with something special inside. And we also have a conscience. I have seen a lot of, like in the supporters that we have, and the teams, and the friends, they're doing good things. Like when we started the movement, in '93, we had the campaign getting signatures, like petition, having a green ribbon campaign. That was Joan's favorite color. And all that started the movement because we had to keep the killer in prison. If we didn't, there was a good chance he was going to come out. So we had so many thousands through the whole 30 years because there was 2 big fights to keep him in. And all these people, I don't even know who they are. And they all helped. And how did it work, everybody? All of you. Some of you might be listening now. How did it work? With your signature and your signature and your signature, right? So all of you, it makes me feel happy that you did this. So this way we could have this change in society. And that helped, with the laws. And, I saw it. I see it. The power of the people together doing something positive. We do a magnificent change. Even with the grassroots movement. That's something that gives me strength. When I see everybody together, each one doing something to make the world better.
Of course. And I hope you are proud of everything you've accomplished too, because it's unbelievable just the amount of work you've put in and the number of real tangible changes that have been made because of your work. So I know that you are inspiring to many, many, many people.
I don't know if I say the word proud. I just feel free. I feel like a relief. And that makes me feel like a sense of joy. And I'm thankful that I use my talents and my gifts that I was given. It's a very beautiful feeling to see that things work out. Sometimes they don't, but that's okay. I know that I try. And I'll try again. And I'll keep on trying till it works out.
You have certainly done that. You've tried and accomplished so much. And
so many people get sick of me. Oh my God, here comes Rosemarie.
Oh boy, she's going to want to accomplish something now.
Oh no, here she comes again.
Well, you know what? You're doing it all for the best possible reasons and making your kids proud of you. And I think it's awesome that John and Michael are involved in the foundation and helping you so much. That's just amazing.
They really take care of a lot of the physical, because I tell you, I wouldn't be able to do it. It's almost like it was supposed to be. That's another sign almost.
They must feel such a loyalty to you and to the sister that they didn't get to meet. They must really feel her presence to do so much in her name,
Joan is part of the family.
That's awesome. That she's still such a big part of the family. That's wonderful.
Oh, she is. How many children have you supported?
I'm up to about 140 some kids. So
what ages are they?
Oh, anywhere from newborn to I think 22 was the oldest child I talked about. But mostly it's a lot of little ones because they're so vulnerable. But I do feel like they all need to be talked about and remembered. And any child of any age can be abused. And if we don't keep our eyes open for that stuff, it's going to keep happening.
It's a very uncomfortable subject.
Yes.
And I dealt with that, I dealt with that. Oh yeah, I still deal with that.
People are just uncomfortable hearing about it, and
they don't like to talk about it. It's hard for some people. So that's what I think is good that you're doing this. So this way it helps the people to understand and get sensitive to the children that need a voice. They need people to talk about them. And then to help stop it, just like the laws I got through. Well, part of it was, let's have laws. So this way that could be prevention. Maybe like say a potential killer. And he knows that with Joan's law, you're never going to step out of that prison. You're going to stay there. And you're going to die in that prison. And that could stop it. That's the way of prevention.
Exactly. Yeah, you've done a lot for that.
And prevention is really the most important thing you could do. So we won't have all those 140 little babies and young children having to go through so much.
Right, exactly. It's to the point where 4 to 7 kids every single day in the U.S. alone die from abuse or neglect at the hands of their parents, caregivers. The numbers are catastrophic, and something has to happen. And awareness is such a huge part of that, I think. A lot of people have no idea. It's such an awful statistic, but I think it's so important to be aware of that. And, because a lot of people are afraid to call CPS, let's say, if they think something's going on, because, well, it's, their family member and they don't want to cause problems, but they might be the last hope that child has.
Yeah. That's good to know. I didn't know that. I mean, I was abused by my mother at a certain period when I was a child in grammar school. And I remember, first of all, it's very confusing when it's your mother because she was doing a lot of good things and then she's doing this. You're not processing things like, say, I was 12 or 13. You're a child, grammar school. And I think this also was like an impetus for me when I started doing my work, but I didn't know that. But it was in my head, in the back of my head, that, if I screamed so loud, and I could really scream loud, I was known to have a very loud voice. And you were in an apartment house. So, there's somebody right downstairs this side of you. So I figured I'd scream real loud, somebody would come and help me. Nobody came. So that's the way it is still today.
It is.
And these poor children, maybe they don't have certain things to give them strength. I don't know. And it's very, very terrible for them. See that's where my heart goes.
Yeah. Some of them don't have support and they don't know where to go and they don't think it's ever going to end.
Well, you know what? That's where the schools come in. And you know what we have? I developed the relaxation and kindness program. And we donate it to the schools. So please, anybody that hears this and you want to know about this program and implement in your schools, just get in touch. joansjoy.org, JOANSJOY.org. And what it does, it's a video. And the video is made by a professional yoga and meditation instructor who's now also going for a social work degree. So this program, what it's about is you do breathing techniques, you learn it, and then you could bring it home, do it with your parents. And the video, the child sees in school. And on the video, you get a kindness word also. So like this month, the word is trustworthy. What she does is like this month, she had a visualization. She did a certain relaxation, certain type of stretching. The children are sitting but you get this very, very good stretch and your body does feel more relaxed. And then the kindness one, you can implement into your program, ideal is do it every day. But if you don't, at least do it 3 times a week. And if you want to be creative with it and do it say in health, but it needs to be more than just once a month for it to work, say at least twice a week. And there's a lesson plan for the teachers and how to implement the word. It touches on different subjects in getting this word through. And then each month of the school year, you have a different video. It's really to help children that are more quiet in a way that they're too timid, and also help the one that's too aggressive. It's all about like more security in yourself. If you're the very aggressive one with bullying, or you're the one that's very timid for a lot of reasons. And a lot of times the aggressive ones are abused too.
That's a great idea.
So it's the Jones Joy Relaxation and Kindness Program, and we'll donate it.
So you have done yard sales and child safety programs and all sorts of things with the foundation. What other thoughts do you have for the future?
There's one law that we're going for in New York State, and it's the expansion of Jones Law to include all minors under 18. Right now we have Jones Law for under 14. I'll be calling them to see what do we do next. I'll help you with it, because like in New York State, the latter part of the year, they don't get involved with bills. So now we start again. So one of the goals is to get the expansion of Jones Law, which will be called Paula's Law, after a teenager that was raped and murdered in the area of Rockland County. Then there's a documentary that's going to be showing this year, and possibly in April 25th, here in my part of New Jersey. I live in Hillsdale. It will be the second showing of it. The first time was in the Hamptons at Sag Harbor. When you see the film, like I remember being there, right? I was in Sag Harbor, and the people were there. There were maybe 75 people. They were really, as a group, you'd hear, oh, like, oh no, like that. Then you'd hear, yay, yay. You'd hear clapping. And then after that, at the very end, they never stopped clapping. So, this would be good that it gets on even more, not just festivals, beyond, and that's the filmmaker's goal. And now there's a teaser, but she will be putting a trailer. So if you go onto jonesjoy.org, you can see the progress of everything.
Now, for one last word from my sponsors.
And by the way, Joan's favorite song was Ode to Joy.
That's so appropriate for her, I think.
Isn't it something? Ode to Joy. Yeah.
That's one of the songs I learned when I learned piano as a very little kid. It's been a long time, but yeah, that was one of my favorites too. So,
so you and Joan have something in common.
Look at that.
She was going to be playing the piano when she was 8, but she would play by ear.
And she loved ballet.
She loved ballet. The ballet teacher who spoke at the 50th anniversary said that she was a leader in class and that she was very, very talented. She said, I could see Joan on Broadway. I could see her in Washington, D.C., leading something that she believed in. I could see her there, too, and being very honest and fun to be with, and very beautiful.
No doubt about that. What are your favorite memories of her?
I remember her. She was like about 3, 4 years old, and she'd take a little photograph out in a little child chair, and then she would just sit just outside the kitchen against that wall, and she would just listen to music, and her concentration was there about an hour. And when she would sing, very loud voice, and I remember her whistling, great whistle. I remember I'd be lying down, and at that time we didn't know what was wrong, so I thought I had a flu, and she would draw these pictures, and they were pretty intricate. There was one of me lying down, and then she's showing what she's saying. I hope you feel better. BETTR. And she was like, 6 years old, 5 years old. And then she makes all these hearts, about 10 hearts. And the big heart is coming from her. And then the hearts are getting smaller, and they're going down and down to me, or vice versa. But she had this graduation of hearts. And I thought that was pretty neat, the way she did that. And then giving it to me like that, oh, I never forget that. I said, gee, she is just so compassionate. And she really felt it. She was being empathetic, that she wanted me to feel better, better. And I remember her, we have like a little slope, like a hill in the back of our house. And she would be maybe 1.5, 2, and coming down and coming down that like slope, the hill. And it was like she was like running down a hill because it was like a slope, like a bit of a slope. And she liked it. And then she'd go back again and do it again. She liked doing that. And putting my shoes on the patio. And then, dogs, loving. There was a neighbor's dog, and even 1-2 blocks away that would pass our street. And she said, oh, can I walk the dog with you? And she would just take the dog and she would go. Because at that time, that's the way it was. Things were very free.
Yeah, times were definitely different and more innocent.
And then after Joan died, it changed. It changed, was killed that way. And then, I just liked it that she just was such a happy person. And I liked it that she was also not like a pushover type. Like if she didn't like something, you knew it. She would say, oh, again? Oh, like that. See, she wouldn't do it like in a mean way. She was good. She was good with it. And she would take like one of the children's books. And I remember her taking it and patting it on her sister's head, who was a year older, because the sister was annoying her. And she would say, stop it. And she'd tap her on the head with it. But the way she did it, she was humorous with it. And then after, she would be laughing with her sister 2 seconds later. And then she was very good. Like one of the classmates said that she used to make all the boys laugh. She was a jokester. Oh gosh.
That's awesome.
And she had a little boyfriend.
Oh.
Yeah, and she was like quite social. So she had a big group of friends. And one of her friends told me about maybe 25 years ago. I didn't know this, but she says, I was very, very sad when Joan died. And I missed her because I really, really loved her. And she really helped me. And she said, when I was in the schoolyard, she told me to come and play together with all the other kids that she was with.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she made me feel that I belonged. And then Joan did it in a way that she didn't expect anything from it. That's what you just do. We all play together. And then after, that girl used to do something with Joan that helped Joan. That in the morning, and this I didn't know until many years later, that they used to look at the encyclopedia on flowers. Her friend used to read it, and then Joan got into looking at it with her and really liking to do that.
So she just loved learning
But she didn't like math. She made a picture. I hate you, math. And she has a tongue sticking out. And then I remember her, 'cause she had a uniform.
Mm-hmm.
So they had the 3/4 stocking, like socks. Oh, they were always down. I used to have little rubber bands. Oh, by the time she came home, they were always down. And then she had a shawl. Her shawl, the front was on the side. Didn't matter.
She had other things to worry about.
And so I remember a lot of things like that. And I remember her loving chocolate pudding cups. Oh, she loved them. And oh my gosh, she loved All in the Family with Edith. She did that good. She sounded like her.
Oh, that's so funny.
'Cause she liked that voice. She liked the birthday parties. They always had birthday parties. I was always into birthday parties with their friends. Then in the back on the patio, I remember putting water and making like a frame around it so with the cold weather it would get ice. So I think that's one of the last pictures I have of her. And then you see her, she's learning to skate like on her own. And she's trying to balance herself. So right now we have in my house about 100 books. They are softcover and hardcover to sell. And getting the book here, you get a big discount. The physical copy, from Amazon, you save $30.
Wow, okay.
But if you have to have it shipped, then that's $9 more.
Okay.
But you'll get a signed book, and with it, you'll also get a card that it's kind of represent me with Joan hugging like the little brownie with my autograph.
So if anyone is interested in having a copy of the physical book, then they should go to jonesjoy.org.
And then if people read the reviews about the book, and I just got a personal email from an author that was the author of the Killer Across the Table, and he's saying he never saw a book like this in his life.
That's Mark Olshaker.
Yeah, Mark Olshaker. And books he's written has been on the New York Times bestseller list. This book is precious. There's so much in it. There's so much that you can get from the letters, but also from my life with the letters. But it's not really a memoir. You know, it's a reaction to the way he was living and how I was living.
Yeah, it really is unique.
And then you really get to understand what evil is about. It's very, very tricky. But here, you have it in black and white, 332 letters. You're going to get how it really works.
Yeah, and it can be so subtle.
Sometimes that's why you might not get it until the 150th letter.
I definitely think everyone should read it. It's so different from every other type of crime-related book that I've ever read, and I couldn't put it down. Once I picked it up, that was it.
When people see your second podcast, they will see how he could fool anybody. He's really good at fooling people.
That's why I thought it was important to kind of get into those evaluations, because there were so many, and he told so many different stories. Between those and reading those letters, it gives such a good picture of what was going on in there.
You know what? Those letters, I gave them to the parole board, so this way they could use it to give him a longer hit. That means, like, say, instead of 10 years, 20 or 30 years. And if they did help, he got a bigger hit before he was eligible for parole again, because he was always eligible for parole. They were put in my attic. I don't want them to be thrown away, because someday, who knows, they could be like just there for the FBI to look at, to have in the years to come. When I think of all this, there's so much to it. It makes things even clearer to me about some of the things that happened. And it's really atrocious. Even what family members were doing, just atrocious. I mean, there was Joan. I mean, she suffered so much. You say you don't want to forget her, but what do you do to show that you're remembering her? Well, I mean, what do you do to show her mother?
Well, that was one of the questions I had, is why did they back away from you so much? And I guess it must be their discomfort with the whole subject, the whole idea of what happened.
But also it has to do with, convenience and obligation. And then what I really see is definitely everybody didn't want Joan, of course, to leave this way. And it was hard for them. And it's painful, probably when they think about her sometimes. But you don't do that to the mother. I'm a voice. And I fought for that. I would not leave the spirit of Joan. I wouldn't leave it. I wouldn't leave her.
You've done an amazing job of keeping her memory alive, without a doubt.
At the Safety Fest last year, Child Safety Fest, we're having that the last Saturday in September.
Oh, you're doing it again this year?
Oh, we do it every year. This is going to be our 10th. If anybody wants to help, we could use Tricky Tray basket, all made, or we could use like Amazon gift certificates. And then you could look on our website, you could see exactly what we do. And this is our biggest fundraiser. And then, like last year with what we made, we helped 8 organizations having to deal with youth that are victims in human trafficking, children that are neglected, they're in group homes, terrible things, sexual abuse, everything you can imagine. So we helped those children, though. And with the monies we made from last year's Child Safety Fest, they went to Radio City Music Hall, and they went to Great Adventure. And then youth that are human trafficking victims and also other kind of victims, they do horse therapy. So you could help like with that. And if you're close by, then you could come the day of, to support it. It's in Hillsdale, New Jersey, in front of the train station at the Sculpture and Garden, which, has so many flowers and pretty bench. And you will see it on our website. Very happy, very fun. We have a butterfly release too. And we have entertainment. If anybody even would want to share like their entertainment part, like there's some kind of singer, like someone plays their instrument.
That sounds fantastic.
So you see, Joan goes on. Joan's legacy of hope, of helping people, of making the world see the light instead of the darkness. If we just think it's tragedy, it's just the darkness, right? So I'm bringing Joan's light out. So I'm going to tell you something though, everyone. To do what you believe in, we all have that choice, right? What I found is you need to believe in yourself some. Not perfectly, but some, Then you do what's in your heart, like what really your heart wants to do. And even if you're afraid, because I was afraid many times, but you do it, you just do it. It's not easy, but it can't be easy, can it? Huh? How could it be easy, right? But you can get surprises, right? And beautiful signs, and beautiful thoughts, and beautiful things happening. So at the end, I'm going to do it until it's my time to go. But what I found is it gives you something that is so pure inside. It's so beautiful. And that doesn't mean tomorrow's not going to be hard for me, but I'm thankful that I don't stop, So I hope that you understand what I'm saying, and that you feel, you're excited about life. At least sometimes feel the excitement of life. And I hope it's as much as possible because I get the feeling of excitement of life.
Finding it in the small things and taking what you can.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad we got a chance to do this, and I really appreciate you giving me the chance to help you tell Joan's story because it means so much to me and spoken to me in so many ways. And you are such an inspiration. I can't thank you enough for that and for everything you've done.
I think that it's with people like you that we're going to get there as a big, big, powerful group. Lane, you give me joy because you are doing what's so important to let people know about the little children and not be afraid to say it. And you're saying it a lot of times to more than 140 children, and you're having to think of this and feel it. And you want to tell the people, please try to feel it. It's okay. You have to feel it. But we have to help these children that are there right now being abused. So thank you for doing that and supporting what I believe in. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Huge thanks to Rosemarie, who is a hero, a powerhouse, and an inspiration, and it was my honor to speak with her. If anyone who works at a school is interested in learning more about the Joan's Joy Mindful Relaxation and Kindness Program, visit joansjoy.org or email rosebd@email.com. That's ROSEB as in boy, D as in David, @email.com. I'd like to read you a quote from Rosemarie's book, The Message of Light Amid Letters of Darkness, that resonated with me. Victims of crime face tremendous challenges in being heard and getting as much justice as possible. I can't emphasize enough that silence is the foe of the victims and the friend of the perpetrator. Silence will isolate victims, and they will be less able to get support. Silence is what perpetrators want, because it will allow them to continue the control they have. This is so important to keep in mind, especially when it comes to child victims. If you know a child who is being abused or neglected, or even if you suspect child abuse or neglect, you can't worry about how reporting it will affect you or even the parent of that child. Whether you know it or not, your intervention could mean the difference between life and death for that child. Speak up for them. Rosemarie wrote in her book, "I still feel a relationship with Joan in my heart after all these years. Of course, I miss her in so many ways, but I talk to her in my mind and whisper to her and feel that she's around. It isn't the kind of relationship I would have chosen, but it's still a relationship that I cherish." She told NorthJersey.com a few years ago, "I'm so thankful and so happy that I've been able to be her voice for change in this world. I think that's what she really wanted. She was not supposed to be forgotten. She was supposed to be remembered, and there are going to be good things that will continue to come of this." On the Joan's Joy Foundation's YouTube channel, I was thrilled to find a video that included actual audio clips of Joan's voice. It's worth watching in its entirety, but I also want to share a few of those voice clips here, just so you can get to know Joan a little bit better.
How are you doing? Are you doing okay today? Hey, stop talking. Okay?
No,
Frankie, get out of here, please.
I should.
Oh boy, I can't stand him. Mary had a little place with wine snow. Everywhere that Mary went, Mary went, Mary went. Everywhere that Mary went, someone tried to go. First we take Christmas trees out. Let's put some balls on it and some nice little angels and some triangles. We would like to put them. We love them. And we like squares. We'll put them on there. We use lots of hooks. We put some stars on the top if we want to, or some angels. It doesn't matter. When we are finished, put all the boxes away. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Marie. Happy birthday to you. We like to go out in the snow to play, 'cause that's nice, fun. Oh, yeah, yeah. God bless Bobby, God bless Daddy, God bless Joe, God bless Marie, God bless Frankie, God bless everyone.
Now, let's talk a little bit more about who Joan was as a person. Joan Angela D'Alessandro was a smart, free-spirited, very social little girl who loved music, dancing, telling jokes, and being around people. She had a hearty laugh and a beautiful smile that she shared with everyone. Her favorite expressions were "big whoop" and "oh boy." Her favorite foods were soft rolls, meatballs, and bread dipped in tomato sauce, and she especially loved pizza. She did a hilarious, high-pitched impression of Edith Bunker from the TV show All in the Family. Joan, who was left-handed, also loved quiet time to draw, play with paper dolls, and read books. Joan's favorite colors were first green, then orange. Her favorite flower was the daffodil, although she also loved tulips. For her 7th birthday, which was also her first day of 2nd grade, Joan was incredibly proud to wear a birthday corsage that contained pennies and Lifesavers candies. She was a sensitive girl who never allowed anyone to be left behind. Her 2nd grade teacher described Joan as a social butterfly. If her friends had a disagreement, Joan would exclaim, "Oh, come on, let's play, let's do something." Compared to her 2 older siblings, who were more serious, Joan was a happy-go-lucky kid. In most of the many photos I've seen of Joan, her beautiful smile was front and center. Her mom described her by saying, "Joan was empathetic right from the beginning. She was always concerned with other people's feelings and hurts, and she had a natural spunkiness about her." Joan's ballet teacher, Olivia Galgano, described her on the 50th anniversary of Joan's death, saying, "She was a leader. Often, I would have to say we have to line up, and she would run to be first." Engraved on the sculpture in Joan's butterfly garden are the words, "Joan was a loving and brave little girl who was full of life and would stand up for others. She was a spunky, caring, and balanced child who liked daffodils, dogs, dancing, whistling, and high diving. She joked around and enjoyed the piano and her favorite song, Ode to Joy. She was proud to be a Girl Scout brownie. On the back of the sculpture, facing the street, is carved the motto,
Remember Joan today, so tomorrow's children will be safe.
Rosemarie told a story about a young woman contacting her who had known Joan in school. She told me that Joan would bring her into her group on the playground whenever she saw that she was alone and not playing. She said Joan made her feel accepted. Joan is my inspiration that is beyond words to describe. And that's why I chose to fight for Joan's justice and to protect other children. It can't be done by staying quiet. It can't be done by thinking that somebody else is going to do it. You just have to do it. My sources for this episode were the same as Part 1, as well as the Hazleton Standard Speaker and NBC4i. That's it for this episode. Join me next time for another story. If you like the show, please follow or subscribe to Suffer the Little Children on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Spreaker, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast listening app. And please leave me a 5-star rating and a positive review on your favorite podcast platform. Visit the website at sufferthelittleChildrenPod.com. You can support the show by visiting patreon.com/stlcpod, where you can become a patron for rewards ranging from a shout-out by name on the show to bonus content and exclusive gifts. You can also support the show at ko-fi.com/stlcpod. Follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Suffer the Little Children Pod and on TikTok at STLCpod. View photos related to today's episode on Facebook. This podcast is researched, written, hosted, edited, and produced by Lane. Intro theme music is by Dream Note Music, and all music for the show is licensed from audiojungle.net. For more information about preventing or reporting child abuse, visit childhelp.org or call your area's child abuse hotline. And remember, if you see something, say something.